Today's lesson will be about another aspect of linguistic studies of the Bible, and that is textual criticism. And I would encourage you to, again, have these notes printed or on another device while you watch this video so that you can take your notes and still see the images and other things that will be in this video. So, textual criticism is trying to find the original words of the Bible. And if you recall from our first lesson on Lesson 3, two of the best ways to identify linguistic issues regarding a biblical passage is to read it in different versions of the Bible and to learn the information that translators include in the footnotes. As translation and recovering and examining the original words of the Bible is a part of linguistic studies. And so this is our goal. That today we'll talk about how modern Bibles came to be, and particularly this issue of textual criticism. And then we'll look at footnotes and what translators are trying to tell you in these footnotes. And this will continue into Monday's video lecture, where we'll talk more about translations and footnotes and how to identify different types of footnotes. So let's talk first about textual criticism. All modern Bibles translate the New Testament from the Greek into a modern language. This could be English, Spanish, French, Korean, Uyghur, Mandarin, etc. While we know that the original language of the Bible was Greek, we do not have any of the original autographs. An autograph is the original copy of the Bible, just like an autograph if you got from a famous sports star, it would be the actual signed piece of paper. The autographs, when we talk about autographs in the Bible, we're talking about the original copies of the Bible. Meaning the first letter of Romans that Paul wrote to the Roman church, or the letters that John wrote in the book of Revelation. So the original writings, we don't have these. What we do have are copies of these from later years. Some of them are as early maybe as 30 years after the original copy, and others are much, much older, or much, much later than the original copy. And these copies of the Bible are called manuscripts. They're ancient handwritten copies of the Bible. You can also talk about manuscripts or other ancient handwritten copies, but for our purposes, we'll be talking about the Bible. Here's some pictures of some, and you can see that they are all different shapes and sizes. Some are very tiny. This one right here is actually the oldest copy of the New Testament that we have. It's part of the Gospel of John and is from, I believe, about 130-ish. So again, very close to the original writing of John. Some of them are nice and neat in books and arranged in columns. Others are very tattered and ripped. And what you find is you compare these, there's about 5,000 of them in existence to date. And when you compare them, you notice a couple things. First of all, it's important to notice that there are no spaces between words, and it's all in capital letters. So imagine you had to write the Bible in Greek in all capital letters and put little or no spaces in the words. You might then you might make a mistake. And in fact, there are mistakes in these manuscripts. And I believe if you compare all the different misspellings and words left out or words added or various things, there's about 200,000 of them. Now, most of them are very simple. Somebody might left out a letter or a misspelling or added a word or left out a word, and you can compare these manuscripts. But some are a bit more tricky and debated. So if we go back to our notes, where we left off, this is called, again, scribal errors are examples where the scribe, the person copying the Bible, made a mistake, and there are about 200,000 of them, 200,000 differences between all the 5,000 manuscripts. Now that might sound like the Bible is unreliable in its text, but actually the Bible is one of the best preserved, particularly the New Testament, of all ancient texts. And again, the vast majority of these are rather simple mistakes that you can easily tell what the correct text is and what the incorrect text is. And some examples again of these could be misspelling. It could be omitting. Omission means leaving out something or adding something to the text. And over the 1,500 years that the New Testament was copied by hand, many scribal errors developed. There are other times where the text may be different because a scribe may have seen a scribal error and tried to fix it, and another scribe might have seen that same error and tried to fix it in a different way. And sometimes they change the wording to make it more theologically sound or easier to understand, or to include other information. And so this is where textual criticism comes in. Textual criticism is important and necessary because there's all these textual errors, the scribal errors. And so textual criticism is comparing the ancient manuscripts to determine what is the original text. Here's another way to think about it. In this image here, imagine this part where it says autographa is the original copies of the Bible. We don't have those. Some of them we can get pretty close to, but imagine all these little lines are copies of the Bible that were made. And some of them got destroyed. You saw some of the tattered pieces. Some of them are really well preserved, but they're much later on in time. And so what scholars do is when they find a copy of the Bible, they need to figure out about what time period it comes from and what area of the world it came from and what other manuscripts might have been copied from, and what manuscripts might have copied it. And so it's a lot of work, but they're trying to go back from the later manuscripts and see if they can trace back as close as they can to the autographs, the original. They can only get so close, but the goal is to try to be able to tell what are the original words of the Bible. Again, that is what textual criticism is. What are the original words of the Bible? And the goal, and this is important because of all the scribal errors. All right, let's see an example of this on a website. I wish we were together in class and could do this together. It's a really fun website, but a scholar at a professor at university created a way to kind of feel what it's like to do textual criticism. And so in this website, I'll include the link if you're curious or bored and want to play around with this. Imagine if you came across 4 different newspaper articles about a concert or a class. And one was from Michigan, one was from Indiana, one was from Illinois, and one was from Rhode Island. And if you notice, all of these, just like the Bible manuscripts, are all capital letters and no spaces. And so the first thing you have to do in this exercise is go through and type in the spaces. So you have to kind of read through and find a word and put a space, like the word virtuous. And then, violinist. I can put a space there. It's a little trickier on an iPad than a computer. And pinches, that's really tricky. Oh, I see, was. Sorry, this is a little trickier on an iPad than it is on a computer. But you get the idea. You can go through all of these and you'll see that there's words that you got to kind of unlock the words. And as you go along, you'll notice that it creates sentences. Again, you got to add in where you think the periods are, and so forth. And then if you do this all the way through, what you end up creating is 4 different newspaper articles. Again, one from Michigan, one from Indiana, one from Illinois, and one from Rhode Island. And this is, by the way, the answer sheet is available on the website again if you want to try it yourself. And as you begin to read the articles, you notice that they have some discrepancies. Notice that this article says that the violinist was virtuous. That means he was a good person. But this other article in Indiana says he was a virtuoso. That means he was really good at playing the violin. Notice Illinois also says virtuous, and Rhode Island says virtuoso. So here's an example of textual criticism. Was the original article, we don't have the original article, was the original article describing him as virtuous, being a good person, or a virtuoso, a good violinist? Well, considering it's about a violinist, it probably makes more sense that they would be talking about him as a virtuoso. And so this is why there's a footnote here where it says 1 to let you know that this one's explained that Michigan and Indiana seem to be more or less the same, and so they probably were copying the same mistakes in the same version of the article. And so in this case, it seems more likely that virtuoso is the original word. If you notice later on, it talks about a master class. That's when musicians learn from an expert musician. But then it talks about a master class stew here. And again, that doesn't seem to make much sense. This one says a master class to a group, but notice the to would be spelled wrong. Here's stew again, a master class stew. And this says he's giving a mass, a Catholic church service to a class of young artists. So you can see, again, this is what scholars have to do. There's, again, 200,000 differences in the manuscripts, and instead of being 4 copies, they have thousands of copies. And so scholars go through the Greek, and they try to figure out where the words are, and then they have to figure out why sometimes one manuscript will say something, but another manuscript will say something else. So let's go back to the notes now. And obviously you're not at a place to do that. You don't know Greek that well, and how these manuscripts work and the decisions that need to be made. But thankfully there are some great resources, particularly one website that can fill you in on the debates and the decisions that scholars make. What the goal is, after comparing the manuscripts, the goal is to create what's called the critical edition of the Greek New Testament. And critical here doesn't mean like stupid or like yelling at someone or talking bad about somebody. Critical means text critical. It means that they've done textual criticism, which again is recovering the original words of the Bible. And what they're saying is this is what they think the original words of the Bible are based on all the evidence that we have. And there are two main text-critical New Testaments that are the basis of all translations of the Bible. One version is called the Nestle-Aland version. I'm going to change to a lighter color. And that's abbreviated NA. So sometimes in a website or a scholarly book, it might mention NA, and that's referring to the Nestle-Aland text-critical edition of the Greek New Testament. The other version, which is more common for Bible translators and pastors, the Nestle-Aland is more scholarly, but very detailed, is called the UBS, the United Bible Societies. And I actually have a copy of the UBS and want to show you a picture of it. So if we scroll down here, here is a copy of the United Bible Society's critical edition of the Greek New Testament. And if you notice here, this is the beginning of Mark chapter 1. It looks like a P because it's in Greek. And you notice that the verses are a very small segment of the page. And that's because down below, this is all the text-critical information. Meaning that they want to let you know that the reason that they think these are the original words of Mark is because of these different manuscripts. And so if you notice, sometimes they put these footnotes in, and these footnotes want to let you know that there is a difference. So for instance, here at the end of the top of the first verse, there's a little 1, and it's about these bracketed words, huiu theou. And here, if you look at footnote 1, there is a letter next to it, and that is called the rank. And the rank is important because it tells you how sure the scholars are that they have the right words, that they know the original words. After the rank, they list out the different possibilities. It could be Christou huiu theou, or Christou huiu tu theou, or huiu theou, or huiu tu theou, or Christou huiu tu Kyriou, or Christou. You get the idea. There's all these different versions of this verse, and these different manuscripts. That's what all these different letters and numbers are. They're different copies of Mark, and they all have these different ways that they say what the words are. So the C right here, again, is the main thing that's important. The C tells you how sure the scholars are that they got it right. If we go up the notes, right here, it lists the different rankings. If there's an A ranking, that means the scholars are 99% sure they know what the original words are. So they're very sure that they know what the original words are and that the others are mistakes. A B means that the scholars are maybe 85% sure. They don't exactly use these terms, but they say it's likely this. So if an A, that means they're pretty certain. If a B means it's likely they know what the words are. If it's a C ranking, like the one we just saw, that means it's about a 50-50 shot. They are not sure. It could be one way or another way. So scholars, So again, scholars in here you can say about 50% sure. They're certain they know the original words. And then finally, a D ranking means the scholars are not sure. So it's not even 50-50, they just don't know. It's uncertain. So again, an A means that they're certain they know the original words, despite the differences in the manuscripts. A B means they're pretty sure, it's likely. 50-50 for a C, and then they're not sure at all with a D. There's too many mistakes and too many different possible ways to read the Bible. So in this case, these two words right here, huiu theu, there is about a 50-50 shot that 50% shot that those two words are originally in the Bible. There's a 50% shot also that those words were added by mistake and they're not originally in the Bible. And again, whenever the scholars find these different manuscripts and there's scribal errors, they have to go through and decide what are the original words and how sure are they. So if you notice later on, there is an A ranking at the end of the first line of verse 2. And so again, they're almost certain that the original words are en to hisia to propheti. Later on, then there's another C ranking here in verse 4, and so on. So throughout this whole book, it has the New Testament in Greek, and whenever there are significant discrepancies because of the scribal errors, they provide these ranks. This example later on shows even a more... Oh, never mind, that's not what it is. Yes. This one shows even a more serious example of that causes debate and discrepancy. So here, notice that the verse goes from 25 to 27. It skips verse 26. And the reason that it skips verse 26 is because the verses were added before a lot of these manuscripts and textual criticism was developed and the manuscripts were found. And so they're actually 99% certain that verse 26 should be omitted. Omitted means left out. That originally Mark, which chapter is this? Mark 11:26 did not exist. They're 99% certain, but it was added by mistake by one of the scribes, and it got copied into the Bible and got a verse number attached to it. So this shows you that sometimes there are significant debates about textual criticism because all of a sudden it looks like you're taking words out of the Bible, but you could also say you're actually restoring the original words of the Bible because those words in verse 26 should have never been in the Bible to begin with. In fact, we see this in a very famous way in the Lord's Prayer in Matthew. It says, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread as we forgive, and forgive us our trespasses, or forgive us our debts as we forgive those our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." And that's the part I just read right here. And if you notice, there's a little footnote here, number 4. And number 4 says that they are 99% certain that that is the end of the Lord's Prayer. And if you've ever said the Lord's Prayer, you probably said, "For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever." Well, that is likely actually not originally in the Bible. That was added later. And this is why, for instance, in the Catholic Church, they don't say those words when they say the Lord's Prayer. They just end and deliver us from evil. So here you have a part of Christian tradition to say the Lord's Prayer and end with, "For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen." And that actually is, they're pretty certain, 99% certain that those words are not originally in the Lord's Prayer. So, does that mean we shouldn't say them? Does that mean we should put a little footnote whenever we have a chapel or a church service? Those are all parts of the debate. But you can see now why textual criticism is important and why studying the original words of the Bible can help you better understand God's Word and what it says and what it does not say. So, let's move on. This next part just says you could do the same thing in this practice example, that once you get the original, the different copies, you could compare them and try to create what is the original text. And so that's what this example does. When it says text, it's saying they think that the original word is virtuoso, and then they explain why in footnote 1 they think virtuoso is correct. And it goes on and explains all the different discrepancies, the scribal errors, and why one word is better than another word. Here's where it talks about stew or a mass, etc., etc. And so this is the goal. Again, a critical addition. This is a little trail of, we don't have the autographs, that's the blank square. And again, the idea is who copied whom for the manuscripts and what are the original words. So, again, if you want to do that fun exercise to pretend you're a text critical scholar, that would be great, but you don't have to. But I do want you to be able to identify text critical footnotes and use a great website to help interpret them. So, just like the Greek New Testament, the critical edition puts a footnote in about whenever they're not sure about the translation. Good modern translations will also add footnotes to let you know when they are not sure what the original words of the Bible are. Some versions will simply put the questionable words in brackets. So if you ever see brackets around a verse, a word, it means they're not sure if that's originally in the Bible. And when you see a footnote, you can know it's text critical if it talks about manuscripts or authorities or ancient versions, ancient copies, etc. So I'll mention something about these manuscripts and that there's differences. And again, sometimes whole verses will be missing in the New Testament because the verses are now believed to be not originally in the Bible. So this website right here is the one I'd recommend to use. There's another website that has good information, but it's a bit overwhelming. This one is set up rather simple. It's listed right here, and I also will put it in Google Classroom, and you'll want to bookmark this or keep it open because we'll be using this for the rest of the year. And there's a couple things we want to focus on when we go to this website. So one thing we want to do when we're at this website is to notice how it's set up. There's all the books of the New Testament, and there are different links that you can click onto to look up verses in that vicinity. So let's go back to our Mark 1:1 example, where there were two words, huiutheu, which means the Son of God, which were debated. And if you notice, here's the text that they put in the Bible, and then there's the rank right here. The rank. Does everyone see the rank? That's the rank. And notice it says C. And again, a C rank means that they are about 50% sure they know what the original words of the Bible. So one thing to do on this website is to make sure you write down the rank, because that tells you how sure they are that they know the words of the Bible. The next thing to do is look at the comments. Under the comments, it explains why these words are in question, or why they likely are or are not in the Bible. In other words, explains the issue so you can understand why these words are likely not in the Bible or likely are in the Bible. So in this comment it says, the words, the Son of God, are in brackets in the UBS text. Again, that's one of the critical additions that I showed you. Some of the evidence listed above for this reading has Son of God. While it is possible that the words were added by copyists, so they could have been added, it is more likely that they are original and were accidentally omitted when copyists' eyes jump from the word Christ to God, both of which have the same ending in Greek. So basically a scribe was copying down and writing, and then just like maybe you've read and also you skip a line accidentally, that's what they think happened, that they skipped a line and left these words out. So that's how you can use this website. Again, you can go back to this main list and find whatever Bible passage you're studying, and then click on it and find the rank. Here's another example. Again, you want to find the rank and the comments. So lastly, to wrap this up, textual criticism. Textual criticism does have its controversy because of its association with taking words out of the Bible. And so if you're interested in a high-pass answer, read this section that says the King James Version or in the New King James Version and versus modern Bibles, and realize that the King James Version and New King James Version are based on the traditional words that are in the Bible, versus modern Bibles, the NIV, the ESV, the CEV, the RSV, NRSV, etc., they're all based on the newer text-critical editions of the New Testament. And so there are certain churches and schools and colleges that you have to use the King James because they believe the newer Bibles corrupt the Bible. Here, for example, is one such website, and they go through and say, look at all the times that these scholars cross out the words of the Bible. And so maybe you've met someone or heard someone or know somebody who says, oh, we only use the King James Bible. And it's because they believe these newer versions take words out because of the textual criticism. On the flip side, people who use the newer versions argue that these words are in the Bible by mistake and that they shouldn't have ever been in the Bible to begin with. The longest passages of debate are the end of Mark, which has 12 verses that are not original to Mark, and also the Gospel of John, the story of the woman caught in adultery, and Jesus says, whoever is without sin, throw the first stone. That is likely not original to the Gospel of John. So that is how footnotes work and the debate around them. And for your homework, you are going to look at you're going to look at a worksheet that will have you, sorry, let me bring it up. You're going to look at a worksheet that has 3 examples, and you're going to use that website that we talked about. Again, here's the link. It'll be in Google Classroom. And you want to write down the text in the Bible, the alternate reading, and you can skip the significance, but look at the rank and the comments. So the rank, the comments, again, so you go through and write down the words in the Bible. The words that are not in the Bible, but in the footnote. So the and then the rank again will be A, B, C, or D. And then the explanation, that's where you see the comments section. And there are 3 examples of this. You can leave out the significance part. And on Tuesday of next week, I'll meet with you to see how you did and what you can do better for the quiz and test and project coming up. Thank you. Bye.